Hi, good evening to everyone. Thank you for joining me. I'd like to say Happy New Year, but in truth, in my heart of hearts, I suspect 2026 is going to be tough. I think this is going to be a rough ride. I'd like to be wrong on it, but I can see all the pieces coming together. And yes, it is a concern. The challenge that I have is how do I, as I continue to talk about these things, give some insight, one, in terms of the predictions, and two, what can be done to potentially mitigate some of these things? That's really the question, because if you go back to 2020, right before the pandemic hit, if you knew what was going to happen, what would you say to others? How would you advise them to prepare? And it's a similar thought that I have now is okay, I suspect what is going to happen. I'm going to explain some of the science as to why I think it's going to be like this. But then the question is for you, what do you do? Or how do you educate those around you? And that's really the bigger challenge that I'll have to navigate as we go through 2026. So, what caught my attention today is this topic. So, this is in the UK, Google News. In each part of the Western world, probably not so much so in the Southern Hemisphere, but they're talking about this mystery virus making everyone ill, this adenovirus victim who thought he had just had a cold. Health experts urge Britons to know the symptoms of a mystery virus, symptoms to look out for cases of highly contagious adenovirus. These are all within the past few days. And the question is why is this dominating the news at the moment? Well, when I looked at some surveillance data, I'm going to give you my thought on it. And this is, as you can imagine, it's up for challenge because this is just my opinion. And so I'm just looking at what was out there and trying to make sense of it. And so this was the National Flu and COVID-19 Surveillance Report, 24th of December, 2025, week 52. And it gives us an insight into what was happening in the week just prior to the Christmas. And there's a reason why I'm highlighting that. One, what we're seeing here is when they looked at COVID cases, weekly confirmed cases of COVID in hospital settings, a peak was around October, and then you see a drop down here. And this may give people a lot of comfort, but it doesn't comfort me because the way how this new variant is circulating, it is so very subtle that many people don't even realize they probably had COVID, and so they wouldn't test for it. And so we have a very unusual pattern at the moment. And so I don't think the numbers of cases are less. I just think they're less identified. But that's just my opinion. When we look at where we are compared to other years for COVID, you can see 25, 26 down here. So it's one of the lowest years compared to 22, 23 and 23, 24, which were higher up. Again, that may appear to be good news. But as I said, I am a little bit wary at the moment with regards to what has been happening and the implications of it. And when we looked at the daily percentage of flu cases, because you have to remember that a variant of flu was spreading first in Japan, they had to close schools across Japan. Then it hit Singapore and the Philippines. And so I knew it was going to hit the UK at some point. It's definitely hit the United States and Canada. Similar kind of pattern. Now, what we notice here is that there was a peak here and it started to fall off. And again, this may appear to be good. The problem I've got is that based on this surge, I am unsure whether or not it's the fact that because there was COVID before, the response of the immune system is different. And again, this is about people testing for influenza, meaning that you have to have symptoms. And if your symptoms don't quite fit, people will not necessarily test for it. And so this is where I think that there is something that is not quite right. And when you look at what's happening with RSV, respiratory syncytial virus, daily percentage test for positive, you can see that this is way up there. I suspect it's the same with influenza. I suspect it's the same with COVID. And just a reminder as to why I say that is that you have to understand that there is a very unusual pattern that occurs with SARS-CoV-2 or COVID. These days, my best way of identifying if a patient is likely to be COVID infected and sick is not actually a swab, because depending on how good the swab is, will determine whether or not it's positive. What I look for is their lymphocyte count. What has been really consistent is that the lymphocyte count falls. Lymphocytes are usually what fight viruses. And so, without a shadow of a doubt, COVID impairs the immune system to fight not just against COVID, but against all other viruses. And so, based on that trajectory, I expect all other viral counts to rise. And this is exactly what we saw with regards to the UK statistics. So, this is the respiratory data mart weekly percentages of positive tests looking at multiple viruses. You'll see that SARS-CoV-2 is down here after it was up there in September, October. But all the other viruses are rising in a way that suggests we're having multiple co-infections. My suspicion is that it's not just influenza. A lot of people will have influenza and RSV with rhinovirus and multiple viral infections occurring at the same time because the immune system is suppressed post-COVID. And this is why we're going into a very unusual period. Now, this now is where I think the most important observation has come up. And I'm going to share this with you. And again, this is just my perspective looking at the data from the UK statistics, just trying to find the chart here. So what they had here in figure 13 is the number of acute respiratory infection incidents by setting in England. And what you can see here is in blue, it's care homes. Brownish is educational settings. Blue is hospitals. Purple is other, and then prisons. When you look at January, February 2025, the primary surge was in care homes. And if you look down here, educational settings only had a little blip. That's the brown. If you look here, similar to what was happening in Japan and Singapore and the Philippines, there is a surge of viral infections spreading through educational settings. That means schools, colleges. The reason why this is relevant is that there are two things that seem to be coming together. Now, follow this. If children at the moment, and it seems as though there is a difference in the response of the immune system to the viruses that's going around, it can no longer be immune debt because there have been a lot of viruses circulating. There's something else going on, and it doesn't feel right. As to whether I can tell you exactly what it is, not sure, but something doesn't feel right. And what this means is that you have a combination of two things. You have viral infections circulating in educational environments, which means children, at the same time as you have everybody coming together for the Christmas and the New Year. And this is exactly what happened in most countries, where you have whole families together, children, adults, grandparents. Based on that, and again, you look at the image here with what was happening in the educational settings, based on this pattern coming into Christmas, I would expect that you would get a super spreader event around the Christmas time. The care homes are going to be hit later on, maybe within another 3 weeks to 5 weeks, and their numbers, based on what happened last year, I expect to surge. So there's going to be a delay. And my suspicion is that this is what we're going to see, that January, February are going to be very difficult in terms of pressure on systems. And this is across the board. Some people may think to themselves, well, why is that relevant to me? I'm fit and I'm healthy. I don't have any problems. The truth is that when hospital systems get under significant pressure, it means that all the other people who have an emergency, whether or not it's a car accident, whether or not it's a fall with an injury, whether or not it's a heart attack, all other conditions get harder to manage. And therefore, mortality tends to increase when hospitals are under significant pressure. And so, what you can then see is going into January, February, a huge pressure surge that impacts every aspect of health throughout the population. That's what I'm suspecting is going to happen simply because of this surge in the educational setting. Younger people can manage the virus, but then they become spreaders over the Christmas period to older people who are not so well. And therefore, the timeline is a little bit different. What I expect is, as I said, the storm iceberg, where people don't necessarily have overt symptoms. They have mild initial symptoms. But beyond that are a lot of inflammatory things, hypertension getting worse, fatigue, maybe stroke, memory issues, breathing problems. And this is in the cohort who is much more vulnerable to significant health impacts. As I said, I don't expect this pattern to suddenly get better. What can you do? At the moment, the recommendation is to get as many people as you can vaccinated. The problem is, in my view, and I'm not the public health advice expert here, is that similar to what Gert had said, is that you usually want to vaccinate prior to circulation of the virus so that the immune systems are prepared. I'm unsure if when they look at their public health analysis, whether or not doing it in the midst of the circulation is going to be as effective. So that's an issue that they'll have to face up to, and they will be usually challenging or targeting the higher risk people. Simple strategies, as I've always said, please don't forget to hum. I cannot emphasize to you how important this is. It just protects your upper airways against everything. All viral infections, bacterial infections, it clears your sinuses. Everybody can do it. There is literally no excuse. Vitamin D, if you don't know, or if you know you are low, at least if you are thinking about it, maybe get it checked. Just get it checked if you are worried that you're going to take too much. But in a temperate climate, I suspect almost everyone will be either deficient or low. At the same time, you want to try and maintain general health and well-being. And again, it's difficult to give specific advice, but I think one of the challenges that many people have now is that there are so few options in front of them other than what they can get over the counter. As I said, vitamin D, you can take vitamin C with zinc if you think that you're exposed or to protect yourself. All these are simple strategies that will help to keep you well. More than ever, please keep active, protect your health. There is so little that is being offered to the public, and this is very sad. You are walking into this with no tools, and there is very little understanding as to what's going to happen next. I can't predict it, absolutely, but looking at the trend, I would expect that going into 2026, certainly the early part, this is going to be a rough ride. We'd better be prepared and at least have some simple strategies that everyone can use. I'd say have a happy new year, but let's have a healthy new year. Thank you.
A hero, an immune adventure. Humming Heroes, your lyrical guide to the body's defenders. now on Amazon. Check the links below.